Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to do something I haven't done before, which is making a build guide. Now, build guides are very successful on YouTube, or can be very successful on YouTube, but I've never really been inspired to make one because typically when you've seen one build guide focusing on a specific ability, you've kind of seen them all, right? So for example, when we're looking at the sorcerer build here, there's 24 abilities here. 3 of those are ultimates and you can only use one ultimate at a time. So there's not much build diversity. So for example, if someone were to make like a ball lightning build, obviously ball lightning is going to be the main attack here, but they're all going to have like the same other skills that come with the sorcerer kit. So pretty much every build is going to be running teleport. Every build is going to be running flame shield. Pretty much every ability is going to have fireball as one of the enchantment effects so that when one enemy dies, they all explode in unison right next to each other. You might have some ice blades in there to apply vulnerability to targets. So basically when person A makes a ball lightning build, person B is going to come around and make their own guide video, but all they're going to do is maybe change 1 or 2 passives around, or they'll change 1 or 2 of the nodes on the Paragon board. It's really the same thing. So I've never really felt reason to just make content like that just to make content. So let's get into the build here. The first thing I'm going to do is take off my flame shield. So this video is going to be like how we got to go infinite with flame shield. It's not really going to be showing off much because the build's not really good at a lot of things. It's not good at speed farming. It's not good at boss killing. It's not good at a lot of the main things you want to do in Diablo 4. It's not good at vaults, dungeons, hell tides. It's really good at PvP. If you can find people to fight, like it's probably the best PvP build in the game. The problem is no one plays PvP in this game, so good luck trying to find someone. So if you just want to try the build, check the description. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about how this works and why it works. So flame shield, we see here, if you put in a point into it, whether you have 0 or 1 point, it stays the same. So 1 point into flame shield, we can see that there's a cooldown of 20 seconds. And you're only immune for 2 seconds. And if you see where it says next rank, when you put in another point, it's going to go up by 0.1 seconds. So we do that, put in another point, another 0.1 seconds, another point, 0.1 seconds. So we can see here that for each point that you put into flame shield, it's going to give you that immunity for another 1/10 of a second. So just looking at putting points into flame shield, if we want to go infinite for that full 20-second cooldown, we need to put another 176 points into flame shield. And obviously that's not going to happen, nor should it ever be possible for that to happen. So the next step we need to do is work on that cooldown reduction. Now I don't know for every class, I assume it works like this for every class, but specifically for sorcerer, there's only 5 gear slots where you can gain cooldown reduction as an affix on your gear. And that's going to be your helmet, your amulet, the 2 rings, and your offhand. So for your chest, your gloves, your pants, your boots, and your main weapon, main hand, you won't be able to gain any cooldown reduction. So what that means is that for all 5 of these slots, we need to hit those perfect rolls or as close as we can to those perfect rolls for cooldown reduction. So all 5 of these items need to have cooldown reduction. It's very important. Otherwise, the build's not going to work. So the most obvious one for the helmet is going to be the Shaco, because not only does it give you that perfect roll, that 10.3 cooldown reduction, but it's going to give you +4 to flame shield. And like I said, each stat gives you plus 0.1 seconds to flame shield. So we're going to be at a 2.8 seconds with that Shaco. The next thing we need is the rings. Now, what I did for the rings is I used unique rings because at least in the current iteration of Diablo 4, I mean, most of us, if not all of us, really hate sifting through the gear. And the nice thing about uniques is that the affixes are locked in. You can't change the affixes. So we don't have to spend the time trying to find 2 good rings with the cooldown reduction that we need, because we can just use 2 unique rings that are really good and are going to work with our build anyway. They're X-Falls and Talrashas. So they both give cooldown reduction, but they also have really good aspects that'll help us with our damage. So Talrashas, it's a really popular ring. It's used in basically every single sorceress build. You're going to get that 14.5 × 3 multiplier when you use the 3 different elements. And then for X-Falls, any kind of damage over time effects, which we're going to be doing a lot of burn damage. So any damage over time effects have a 50% chance to erupt, dealing a bunch of damage to any nearby enemies. So that's going to help with more damage. Next, we're going to look at our amulet, and we're just going to use a random amulet that we find out in the field, but specifically there's 2 aspects that we want to look for. The main one being cooldown reduction, and then if we can get +3 ranks to all defensive skills. Flame Shield is a defensive skill, so if we get +3 ranks to defensive skills, that's plus 0.3 seconds to our immunity. And then lastly is going to be our focus. Now with the focus, we again want to get cooldown reduction. Unfortunately, I only got a 9.2 out of 10.3. I'm actually not really happy about that, but I wouldn't go lower than 9% because as you can see, these are I got the perfect roll from the Shaco obviously, but I got a 10%, a 9.7, a 10%, and a 9.2, and I am barely going infinite with this build. Barely. So you really need those perfect rolls or near perfect rolls on cooldown reduction if you are insane and want to try this build as well. So perfect. Now we got all the cooldown reduction that we can. Let's take a look at Flame Shield again. And we're still not there. So we've reduced the cooldown to 10.68 seconds, but we're only engulfed for 3.1 seconds. So there's still a 7.5 second downtime of us being vulnerable for attack. So what do we do about that? We can go to our boots and we can go to our pants and we can add in plus ranks to Flame Shield, which I did with my boots. So I added in a +4 ranks of Flame Shield that adds in 0.4 seconds. But like I said earlier, when we needed 176 points to get to that cooldown, ranks in Flame Shield isn't really going to do it. So we need to do something else. And if you're looking at this item right here, it's right in front of your face. With the Vampiric aspects being added back into the mid-season patch of Season 3, we now have access to the Hectic aspect again, which is after casting 5 basic skills, one of your active cooldowns is reduced from 2 to 4 seconds. Now, I got 3.6 seconds. Really, you want to get that 4 seconds. Unfortunately, I couldn't get there. 3.6 was the best I could do. Now, if we look at my skill bar here, you can see that I only have 2 skills that I'm using. I'm using Flame Shield, which has a cooldown, and then I'm using Firebolt, which is just a basic attack. So if we only have 1 cooldown spell, that means whenever Hectic activates, it can only activate on Flame Shield. So that gets rid of 3.6 seconds for every 5 attacks. So what do we need to do so that we can activate Hectic more frequently? Well, the best thing we can do is just add in more attack speed. Attack speed is going to allow us to attack faster so that Hectic can activate more often. So what we want to do is we want to grab some gloves and we're going to put attack speed on them. We're going to try to get a perfect roll on that attack speed. And fortunately I did. I got 15% attack speed. And then to help with the attack speed, we're also putting the rapid aspect on our amulet. So for this instance, it gains me 41% attack speed for any basic skills that we're using. Since Firebolt is the skill that we're using, that means that it's going to attack faster, procting that Hectic aspect more often. And then lastly, for attack speed, we want to put a basic skill attack speed affix on our focus. Now this is a affix that can only appear on 3 different items in the game: a helm, which ours is currently being occupied by the Shaco, a focus, and a shield. Only necromancers can use shields, so this makes it so the focus has to be the one to run this basic skill attack speed. And this is also going to help speeding up that Hectic aspect that is so important to this build. And really, this is it. This is the whole build right here. We don't need a chest. We don't need pants. We need a weapon so that we can activate these 2 abilities. But right here, I've got the basic wand that you start with. Like, this is your level 1 new character wand. We're going to equip that. And then we're going to go try to fight Uber Lilith right now. Now, before we fight Uber Lilith, there are still a couple of things that I forgot to mention. In the skill tree, there is the Ice Blades. Specifically, if we get the Summoned Ice Blades ability, that will give 20% of enhanced Ice Blades cooldown reduction is applied to your other skills. Now, we don't want to actually use Ice Blades because, as you can see, Ice Blades has a cooldown. If Ice Blades has a cooldown and Flame Shield has a cooldown, then we're kind of 50-50 on where Hectic is going to give that bonus. So we don't want to actually use Ice Blades. What we're going to do is have it as an enchantment so that for every 40 seconds in cooldowns you spend, it's going to spawn that Ice Blades. And what that does is that's going to give us our Tarasha proc that we want. Now, a really easy way to get around this is just have Spark and Frostbolt on your skill bar as well. That way when you fight Lilith, you just go Spark, Ice Bolt, and then you go to Firebolt. That'll give you your 3 Talrasha procs just like that, and then you just focus on these 2 abilities. But since we're going for the full meme potential, and you can also still have your teleport attachment, but for this video, I just want to show off these 2 different abilities. So we have the Ice Blades attachment, and also we have the Tuning Stones, the Evernight Tuning Stones. So Evernight gives you +4 to all skills. That's going to give us that plus 0.4 seconds to that immunity. And I believe that is it. So you can see I still don't have a chest. I still don't have pants. I just have the basic apprentice one. And we're going to go into Lilith, and we are just going to go infinite against her. So as you can see, I'm just holding down my right mouse right now, and then I'm pressing R when Flame Shield comes up. And this is where I'm talking about where you really need those high cooldown reductions, because you can see how close it's getting. And I've got really high rolls, but I don't have the perfect rolls. If my rolls were any worse, then I wouldn't be able to go infinite against Lilith. And not going infinite for a tenth of a second against her is going to get you killed. So this is why it's very important that you get those really good cooldown reduction affixes. And you can also see right above where I'm activating Flame Shield, it keeps saying gained Hectic. So since Flame Shield is the only ability with a cooldown, that's where Hectic is going. And basically this is the whole fight. Now I'm just going to die. I'm going to die on purpose, just so you know, right here I'm going to die, because I don't want to spend the next 10 minutes just fighting Lilith, because I don't have any damage. So this is really all you need for the build. Now what we're doing is we're just going to add on damage, and that's what these items are over here. So I'm adding in Razor Plate because that deals Thorns damage. So whether or not you're fighting just Lilith or you're in a vault or a dungeon somewhere, all these enemies attacking you, even if you absorb the damage from Flame Shield, Thorns is still going to activate. It's still going to deal that damage back out to the enemies. We're going to have Needle Flare on the gauntlets, which Thorns damage dealt has a 40% chance to deal damage to all enemies around you. Then we're going to use Tybalt's as pants because you gain increased damage while unstoppable and for 4 seconds after. So we're permanently unstoppable because we're using Flame Shield over and over, so that's increased damage. And then for the weapon, we're going to have Conceited, deal increased damage while you have a barrier active. We're always going to have a barrier active because we're always using Flame Shield. But that's really all this build is. I don't think I really need to go through the Paragons. Like I said, I'll post it, but it's really nothing special. I don't even have everything at level 21. I got Exploit at 16, Enchanter, and Torch at 15. So you don't even need to. This is just to deal more damage. That's all the Paragon is doing here. I would slay enemies faster. And then if you want to deal more damage, you could get rid of some of these passives. Like Protection, you don't really need Protection. You don't need Max Life because you're not going to get hit anyway. So you could take that off and you could put it in Hydra or something, right? Hydra isn't a cooldown ability. It just uses mana. So you could do a Summon Hydra. As you see here, it doesn't have a cooldown. Same with Blizzard doesn't have a cooldown, so you could use Blizzard as well. You could use any of these abilities that don't have cooldowns. But the thing about using these abilities is that it's going to slow down your attack. So when I'm casting Hydra, you get that split second where you're not casting a basic attack, so that's slowing down your cooldown for your Flame Shield. Same with Blizzard. So that's going to be it for this video. The rest of the video is just me going through a tier 100 Nightmare Vault, showing you that although this build isn't the prettiest looking thing, it can get the job done, clearing the highest dungeon and slaying Uber Lilith. Once again, this was my first time making a build guide video. Let me know how I did and if I should do more stuff like this in the future. This is more of just a theory crafting idea I've had since the beginning of Diablo 4, and now we can finally go infinite. Not that that's a good thing, not that this is the best build in the world or anything, but hey, at least we can do something fun with the game. With that said, I still do not recommend making this build. Do not make this build. This build is not good for the primary things you want to do in the game, like speed farming, boss killing. This is not good for that. If there's a sudden surge of PvP, then yeah, definitely go for this build. But other than that, I do not recommend it. But other than that, if you're still here, thank you. I do appreciate the support. I do read every single comment that I get on my videos, at least the ones that YouTube notifies me of. But yeah, that's about it. I will talk to you soon.